My name is Kevin Neel. I've got two restaurants now in Rosemary Beach. Marta came into my restaurant, Aqua, that we just opened about 4 months ago, and she asked me, like, how did you do this and why? And so I kind of gave her the rundown of the story of how I evolved from the finance world into a restaurant owner, which is crazy. And she's like, yeah, you need to come and tell that story to our group. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So here I am. I don't know how relevant it will be to you. I feel like a lot of us have similar personalities. We want to achieve and do great things, and we're looking for little angles, and you can exploit things to get better. And I think this is such a great forum to take advantage of, listen to people who have done things, and maybe inspire you to do something different or better. I was a mortgage banker for 15 years in Atlanta. I rode the wave. I had a great time. I started a little tiny company in Atlanta called United Capital, and we did A-paper loans. We were mortgage brokers. There were originally 4 of us, and then we grew to be 28. And it was awesome. We made a lot of money, and we made a lot of people happy. And I thought we were above the fray when the mortgage crisis started. I said, well, that's too bad for those subprime guys. They shouldn't have been doing that stuff anyway. They're going to get crushed. And we only did A-paper loans. We did, in Atlanta, we did a lot of loans down here, believe it or not, people buying second homes on the Panhandle. And I myself bought a second home on the Panhandle because over in Rosemary, I bought a lot, and I'm like, man, this is going to be awesome. You know, values are going up. It's never going to end. The party's going to go on forever, like everybody thought. And so, you know, stuff started to crack. I could see signs in 2006, 2007 where it was starting to unravel. And the guy I'm sitting next to, we were talking earlier about, you know, he asked me, you know, like, when did you know? And I told him I thought when Fannie Mae started doing some A- loans, I thought they kind of breached their responsibility of being the gatekeeper of the clean money, and they started taking some not so clean money to make more money. And by endorsing subprime loans, I feel like they kind of said it was okay. And that kind of started the ball, in my opinion, going downhill. So anyway, I was a mortgage broker. I came down to Rosemary Beach to kind of get away from the type A personalities in Atlanta and all the traffic. And I would come here and relax and love it, and then it'd be hard for me to go back to Atlanta from Rosemary Beach. And I convinced my wife and my kids to move down here full time. I thought to myself, why do I need to be in the crux of Atlanta and all that hectic behavior if I could be sitting at the beach and do the same thing in front of my computer and with a phone? So we did that. We moved to Rosemary Beach from Atlanta, and everything was great. And then 2008 happened, and really the nexus of my story of how I came to birth a restaurant really started with the death of my mom. My mom in 2007, around July 4th, we were out on our family barbecue, and she said she's got pancreatic cancer to our family, and that's kind of a death sentence, and you kind of know right then and there it's not going to be too long. So terrible news, and my friends who worked for Delta, you know, I was down here and my mom was in Atlanta, and they said, you know, we'll give you buddy passes to fly up and see your mom. I never wound up using them because she died within like 3 months. It was pretty fast, and so it was a bummer, but it was good. She didn't have to suffer too long. But you know, everything was kind of going bad in 2008. My mom had just died. The market was crashing. My business was like failing. I had all these debts that I had to pay on, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? You know, I have this money in my bank account. I can keep doing what I'm doing and pay these debts until it runs out, or I can try to do something else. But I was just sitting in bed with my wife watching Spain on the Road again. I don't know if you guys, it's on PBS, where it's Gwyneth Paltrow and Mario Batali. They travel throughout Spain and eat food, and for an hour every night we would lay in bed and we'd say, God, man, I want to totally do that. I just want to drive through Spain and eat food and drink wine and not worry about who I have to pay my debts to. So I told my wife, I'm like, okay, well, I wonder if we can use these buddy passes that we got from Delta to go to Spain. And I kind of jokingly called my buddy and I said, can I use these passes to go to Spain? And he said, well, actually you can. You just have to pay the higher international fee. And I'm like, we're doing it, dude. Like, we are so doing this. So literally within 2 weeks of making that phone call, we went to Spain, and my wife and I traveled. Her parents came down and watched our kids. And we went throughout Spain. We followed the trail. I literally got on their website and figured out where they ate. And we went to every one of their places, and it was awesome. So
that's a great speech, right there.
I'm not done. It gets better. There's nothing better than denial when you're in like a big problem. So I knew I had all this debt and I had a problem, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to go drink wine and have fun for a while. So I did that. And so we traveled through Spain and we loved it, and we took a siesta in the middle of the day, and then came home, and we ate this beautiful food and drank this incredible wine, and then came back here, and you know, I just like, I don't want to do my job anymore. I was just kind of walking through town, and I don't know if you're familiar with Rosemary, but right on Main Street in 2008, they had just constructed this beautiful building that has scrolls and like stairways, and it reminded me of Barcelona. And so my wife and I would put our kids to bed, and we would walk down Main Street, and we walked in front of this shell building that had just been constructed. Nobody's leasing it because nobody was leasing anything in 2008. It was awful. So I stood there and I said to her, I'm like, well, I hope somebody would put like a Barcelona restaurant in here, just like we just had, a little Spanish tapas and chocolate. And she's like, well, why don't you do it since you hate your job? You just do it. And so I started thinking like, well, why don't I do it? Because it's just a business at the end of the day. You write a profit and loss, and you make more money than you lose. And so I started playing around with the idea. I started thinking like, well, we could put everything that we like to eat on the menu. So if nothing else, we have somewhere to go eat, you know? And somebody could cook the food for us so we don't have to do it. So I started messing with this business plan, and it was right around July, the following July, after my mom died. And so we were writing this business plan, and I started getting excited about this. I mean, this would be really cool. I mean, my wife is a chocoholic. She loves chocolate, everything. Liquid chocolate, hard chocolate, any kind of chocolate, she loves it. And Spain, I don't know if you've been there either, but in Barcelona, like, they have little shops that are just chocolate. You sip it, and you can, you know, buy chocolate croissants and whatever, and they have it for breakfast. And I thought, well, heck, if we're gonna do this, like, I'll do one side of the little tapas, and you do your side of the chocolate, and then we'll just make a tapas and chocolate place. So I wrote the plan, and it was probably September by the time I finished screwing around with it, and I was still doing loans and hating it, hating everything about it, because I couldn't get people approved. Nobody's house would appraise. I was talking to banks that were declining loans, and my customers were unhappy. It was just bad news every time the phone rings, so I'm like, I'm just not going to answer the phone. I'm just going to let it go to voicemail, and I'm going to work on my little restaurant plan. You know, I'm not going to do it. I'm just, screw that part. I'm working on this part. So I spent more time working on the restaurant, and I really started getting excited about it, and I was like, man, I think this thing could be great. You know, we could build something pretty cool. So one thing led to another. I presented it to the town merchant association. I asked people around town, do you think this thing would work? And they said yes. And I asked the town, I said, do you think it would work? And they were like, okay, well, submit your plan and we'll approve it or not approve it. And they approved it. And so I negotiated some pretty awesome lease terms because nobody would lease that building. And so I got some cheap, and I talked to the guy who owned the building. I'm like, look, man, if that failed, at least you had somebody in there to build it out. And he said, yeah, if you fail, and he was cool about it. He said, if you fail, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire for the whole long-term lease. I'll let you out of it. I know how it is to start a new business. And I'm like, that's awesome, you know. And I think I would do the same thing for somebody as well, who's putting their, you know, foot out there to try something different. So Darren was cool. He said, let's do this. Give it a shot. You know, I'll help you any way I can. And so I took my savings. I had a chunk of money, and I rationalized it to my wife by saying, you know, we can run through this money with me being miserable doing what I'm doing now, or we can try this crazy adventure, and if it doesn't work, at least we'll go down happy trying something different than going down sad and miserable. So I could see the writing on the wall. The mortgage business is a mess. It's still a mess. Out of my 28 employees, there's only 2 guys that are still left doing it, and now they're starting to make money again, but I can't believe they survived. Anyway, so I had this pile, so I told her, I'm like, let's just try this thing. Let's just give it a shot. She's like, all right, Kevin, whatever, let's do it. So we did it. We started the construction in October, and then we opened February 1st, the following February of 2009, and that was 4 years ago, and now La Crema is a cool little place. It's evolved. Yeah, have you been there? It's a cool place. There's an outdoor courtyard. There's chocolate fondues and molten cakes and stuff for if you want dessert or coffee, and then if you want like Spanish wine and so 4 years ago I started to like the restaurant business. That was the last time I did a mortgage. Also was back in that we opened in February. My last loan was in January of that year. And I don't miss it a bit because it's still a cluster and probably always will be. But now I'm a restaurateur, and I had fun. And here's my epiphany. Okay, so I don't know how much time do I have left. 3 minutes. Okay, so you know, one of the 2 guys that are still doing loans. He works for Wells Fargo now in San Francisco, and he's making a ton of money. But I trained him. He was a little telemarketer, and then he became a great loan officer. And he called me for advice, and I still give all my guys advice, and he called me for advice, but I happened to be in Spain on a wine tour because I was invited.
Here's my advice. Come see me.
Yeah, I had taken one of my purveyors. I sell Spanish wine. Jorge Ordonez came, and he said, you've been so great to sell my Spanish wine. Come to Spain, and I'll show you all the wineries. And I'm like, yes, sir, I will. And so I was in Spain at a monastery, and I was listening to these people talk about how they've made the wine for 200 years. And I was down in this cave, and my phone rings, and it's my friend Brett, and he always calls me on this number, so whenever he calls me, I know it's important, so I answer. And so I duck out, and he's asking me these questions about loans, and I'm like, I hung up, I gave my advice, and I hung up, and I'm just like, man, I made the right decision, man. I can't talk to you right now. I'm sipping wine from a monk. I don't have time for this. This is so much more important. So, okay, so the gist of this story is don't give up when life gives you like garbage. You know, it was very difficult for me, and I failed, and I lost a bunch of money, and I had property that went into foreclosure, but I survived. I reinvented myself into something that I'm so much more pleased with. I have passion about food and wine. I think I always did. I just didn't know it, and I didn't know how to make money from it. But now that I'm doing this, I don't think I'd ever go back. I'm very pleased that I had my time in the mortgage business because it allowed me to get to where I am. I don't regret anything I did. I think everything in life is a lesson. You learn from it, you progress, and you get better. I like what David said earlier about your attitude sets your stress level. Really, I have a positive attitude about everything. My staff, I love my staff. You know, I help them, and hopefully they'll repay me by helping me. But as a group, we take care of each other, and I tell them all the time, like, do the little things in life and work hard, and it'll come back to you. And so I would just relay that to you. Like, do everything you can to do the little things, and you'll get rewarded. So that's all I have.